Hi there, YouTube. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I am your host, Bill Whittle. Let's go grab our friends over on Twitch real quick. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm Bill Whittle. It is Friday night edition of the Stratosphere Lounge here. It's the 15th of November. We had to cancel at the last minute last night, I'm afraid. My wife, Natasha, has developed a case of intermittent acute vertigo, which she's had for, I don't know, 3-4 months now, I suppose. It's actually kind of interesting. I believe I talked about it on the show once before, but basically what happens is you develop crystals in the in those three little loops in your ear that function basically as your biological gyro. And inside these three tiny little loops on your inner ear are tiny little cilia, tiny little hairs. And when your head moves left and right, the cilia moves, but since they're filled with fluid, the fluid doesn't move, and the flow of that fluid over the tiny little hairs sends signals to your brain with your head's turning left and right, back and forth, tilting, doing all those other things, which is so far so good. But what we discovered relatively recently was that you can develop crystals that will get into those ear canals. And if the crystals get in there, then the crystals can move around. And if a crystal like slides down one of these loops, produces the exact same effect as if you're falling. So it's a little rough for her. She will just basically like we were scheduled to do Stratosphere Lounge last night, and in fact I was ready to go right till about 5, I guess, something like that, somewhere in that vicinity. Yes, dilithium crystals, Roger Ram did, exactly. That's what other kinds of crystals could there be? And so anyway, what basically happens is she just has this screaming attack, like a loud scream, not kind of a, kind of like a, I'm being pounced on by a tiger kind of scream. And so I had to cancel the show last night and do these exercises. So to my delight and her relief, there are exercises that a number of therapists have figured out. And basically it consists of, to make a big simplification, what you basically do is you position the head in a number of different ways. I think it's called the Eckhart maneuver. I'm not 100% sure about that. But it's a series of positions. You hold your head like this. And when we were doing it once she turned her head left to right, she just let out this shriek, which was memorable, because the thing is designed to basically take the crystals out of your ear and put them in the garbage disposal down in the drain. And as long as they stay in the drain, she's fine. So Epley maneuver, is it? Thanks. We had this problem 3 months ago, and we did this therapeutic kind of maneuvering, and it had a big help. And she was a little shaky for that day, better the next day, and then much better the next day. Then it was pretty much gone, and then it reoccurred when she was doing yoga. So she just had a bad couple days, and I had to cancel at the last minute yesterday. So sorry about the late minute cancellation. Here we are on Friday. Anyway, so much for that. Hope everybody's doing well. Let's see. And thank you for the kind words, everyone. This maneuver works really remarkably well. It really does. And obviously it takes about 3-4 minutes, and it doesn't cost any money, and it's great. Over in YouTube, we have a super chat from Joseph J. Cousinsall that says, it's people like you that got me into politics, and now I'm 18 years old as the city commissioner of a small town. Thanks for getting me here. My goodness. Good for you, Joseph. I'm very proud of you. That is a remarkable achievement for an 18-year-old. That's absolutely remarkable. Congratulations. We're very proud of you. Taras Shvenko wants to know if ultrasound can help break up those kind of crystals, because they use ultrasound to break up potential kidney stones. I'm not aware of it. I don't think you want that kind of stuff going on in your inner ear, where everything is extremely delicate. So this is one of those kind of chronic conditions that you just sort of manage. And she was doing yoga where she had her head, she was almost, practically standing. She wasn't so much standing on her head so much as she was, I guess, leaning forward with her head straight down for 2 minutes, and that kind of knocked the crystals out of the drain and back into these circular ear canals. So anyway, it was it wasn't so much drama as it was just something I had to take care of. So hopefully we can make up for it today. Yes, family first always. Thank you very much for saying so. I think so too. We took a look at our YouTube analytics, and we've still got another 5 days to go. But so far, we are up from our previous 28 days by 162%. That is a nice number to be up by 162% in 28 days. The hot mics have helped a lot. It was obviously election season, so the number of views are going to be up. But I've been paying a lot more attention to the views. We were 6 months ago, and for the last several years, if we had a right angle that got into 5 figures, broke 10,000, be everyone's doing well. Now they're all breaking, with one exception in the last 7 or 8 or 10 that did 8.5. They're routinely cracking 10. They're usually cracking 20. Those are not super numbers by other people's standards, but they are. I'm not judging them by other people's standards. I've really had a real road to Damascus, kind of a revelation about this, and that is whatever amount of this is due to the algorithm. The algorithm is still the algorithm. The more people watch, the more people get shown the content. So it's just a question of building those numbers back and keeping the content consistent and coming out there. I had a hot mic I was going to record 2 days ago called a counter-revolution of competence. And it was just basically going to be a one-off about, hey, looking at these appointments that Trump has already made and just how great they were. And as I was getting ready to, just making the notes that I would use to go off and do the hot mic thing, I started making notes on Tulsi Gabbard. And I thought, I should say something about who Tulsi Gabbard's replacing. She's replacing Avril Haines. And I started looking into Avril Haines' background. And this is when I realized, no, you know what? I need to do a little more firewall afterburner kind of magic on these things, because I could just come out and say, hey, these guys are great. Look how great they are. But what I ended up deciding to do was to compare Trump's appointments with the people that they're replacing. So it's not a new show. It's a series of hot mics, but I can do all of them back to back, and I've got 9. I can. They don't have to all be in a row, but it gives me something to work on. I'm trying to get the hot mics up to 3 a week. We were getting 2 a week. So let me just tell you what we got here. I'm calling it a counter-revolution of competence, and let me show you a thumbnail, because those of you that have been around for a while will recognize this iconography here. Hang on a second. It's easy to grab. I just got to drop it into these 2 streams here. Hang on a second. We'll use come on, where is it? That's just so strange. Hang on. Here we go. So here's a thumbnail for the first of them. I'll drop it into Twitch, and then I'll grab it and drop it into YouTube. And for those of you who've been here for a while, you'll recognize some of this. And if you haven't been here for a while, it won't mean anything to you. There we go. So this is the first of a what I'm going to do is just a series. Like I said, it's not a new show. It's just a sort of an informal series. But back in the dark days of the Obama administration, second half of the Obama administration, we did a couple of years on something called common sense resistance, and the symbol of the common sense resistance was a hand holding a wrench, and the wrench was interesting because somebody pointed out that it's really can only be used as a tool, not a weapon, as opposed to like a screwdriver or a hammer. I'm sure you can kill somebody with a wrench, but the point was, so the symbol of the common sense resistance was people holding up a wrench. And so I really like that, and almost all the thumbnails have been generative AI thumbnails, and I think the thumbnails are really helping us, actually. I think they're really, really helping us. So I just spent the day doing, 6 of these thumbnails because they're a little complicated to get in there. But the ones that I have prepared, and each one would be its own hot mic episode. I was thinking I would just do one episode, and then I realized, well, for God's sakes, man, it's going to be an hour-long episode or longer. Why not just make, 5 10-minute episodes out of it instead of one 50-minute episode out of it? So we've got, and I'll get back to what a little more in depth on what there are in a second here. So we've got what you just saw there, Tulsi Gabbard versus Avril Haines. We've got Thomas Holman versus Kamala Harris as border czar. We've got Matt Gaetz versus Merrick Garland for Attorney General. We've got Kristi Noem versus Alejandro Mayorkas for Homeland Security. Marco Rubio versus Antony Blinken for Secretary of State, and then Pete Hegseth versus Lloyd Austin for Secretary of Defense, plus a special episode that's not one versus the other, but Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy on the Department of Government Efficiency. So back to the thumbnail I just showed you. What made me realize that I could go deeper in the woods in this and spend more time with them and get more into detail was I started looking at Avril Haines, the current Director of National Intelligence. And I was just going to make a note of 2 or 3 things, and then I would just go through each one of the sets and, like I said, do it all in one episode. But I started getting into the weeds on the research for Haines versus Gabbard. And the thing about Haines that's interesting is her entire background prior to being appointed Director of National Intelligence was as an attorney. She was an attorney. She was a legal representative, did a lot of work with for the Democratic Party. And she's also an academic at Columbia University, and that gives me a chance to point out that the Frankfurt School of Marxism was driven out of Germany when Hitler came to power and moved to the United States and put down roots at Columbia University. Columbia University is where critical theory was developed. Columbia University is where political correctness was developed. All of this racial stuff is all a result of this school of Marxists that settled at Columbia University. And when the current Director of National Intelligence took the break between the Obama administration and coming back as the NDI for Biden, she went back and taught at Columbia, and also was a lobbyist and a consultant for a company called Palantir, which is a big tech company which basically gathers information on everybody and then does what they do with it. And I'm looking at the background of the current Director of National Intelligence, and all I see is lawyer, 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 lawyer. And so I just decided that these hot mics would have a lot more substance if I just went through. I've got 3 full paragraphs on Avril Haines. I'll just read them to you, just so you get a flavor of it, and just to give you an idea like of where I'm going with it. A lot of times you get to cheat, sneak previews, kind of dress rehearsals here on Stress Free Lunch. But this is the background of the current Director of National Intelligence versus the incoming Director of the National Director of National Intelligence. Tell me which one you think you trust the more. So this is the background for Avril Haines. Her background's a lawyer. She was a law clerk for the 6th Circuit. She was legal advisor for the Department of State Office of Treaty Affairs. During the Obama administration, she was initially a legal advisor to the Department of State, then named Deputy Director of the CIA. She hung out with Obama, Susan Rice, and that entire pro-Iranian foreign policy. Susan Rice might as well have been an Iranian national. So when Barack Obama is shipping packets of dollars, $100 bills on pallets to Iran to pay Iran, she's part of that deal. During her tenure, CIA personnel hacked the computers of Senate staffers. CIA hacked Senate staffers' computers. Regarding the Senate Intelligence Committee on CIA torture, and as in her role at the time, she chose not to discipline them. She was overruling the CIA Inspector General. She was in charge of redacting the Senate report on CIA torture. The report consisted of 6,700 pages, and Haines saw to it that 525 pages were not redacted, but that's what was released out of that. So you got somebody who's pretty deep in the deep state in terms of making sure that there's no transparency whatsoever when it comes to things like having the CIA spying on the Senate. During the Trump administration, she worked as a senior research scholar at Columbia University, home to the Frankfurt School, which was formerly the Institute for Social Research in Germany. They wanted to call it the Institute for Marxism, but that was a little too on the nose for them. Those are the creators of critical theory, where Marxism comes not from economics, but rather from creating a social divide. With 60s radicalism dying, one of the leading member of the Frankfurt School, a guy named Herbert Mancuso, recommended the long march through the institutions, which is infiltrate journalism schools, infiltrate education departments, so that you take 20 years to control the news media, and then 40 or 50 years to train the teachers who will then train the people to think like a bunch of Marxists, and that's the theory. And Saul Alinsky is related to this group, and Saul Alinsky is a big sweetheart of Hillary Clinton. She wrote her thesis on Saul Alinsky. He was basically the inspirational source for Barack Obama. And Haines was also a fellow at the Human Rights Institute at Columbia Law School. By the way, there's a lot they have in common, but what does Avril Haines, Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Bill Clinton have in common with Kamala Harris? And that is they are all lawyers. Not going to do a rag on lawyers. There are some shady lawyers out there, and there's some great lawyers out there, and you need lawyers in a country that's ruled by law. But as the law gets more and more arcane and more difficult to decipher, it becomes a priesthood where you are capable of determining what the rules are when regular people aren't. The law now has become so insanely complicated that it's beyond common sense now. Any contract, you just read a standard NDA, for example, and it's just, it's 8 pages of legal boilerplate that if you're missing a clause or a comma, you have no way of knowing if there's something missing, and most of the time you have no way of really knowing exactly what this can commit you to. So just like clicking on the terms and conditions, which may have just legally granted Apple rights to your organs or whatever, you simply just do it. So after Haines took her 4 years off during the first Trump administration, she and was a consultant for Palantir. And by the way, when Biden tapped her as her director of national intelligence, she removed the whole Palantir thing from her resume, which I thought was a little interesting. She was tapped to be the director of national intelligence. She was the director of national intelligence during the withdrawal from Afghanistan. That wasn't exactly handled intelligently in terms of not being prepared for the bombings that happened and the assault on the airport, and all of that stuff is part of her responsibility, and that was not well handled, to say the very least of it. Marco Rubio asked her when she was DNI if China was an adversary of the United States. She replied that, quote, China is adversarial and an adversary on some issues, and on other issues we try to cooperate with them. And she helpfully added that the U.S. was going to be working with China to form a partnership to help address global warming. I'm sure that's going to go real well. Well, it would have gone real well. It's the first thing Donald Trump's going to throw in the garbage. So she was sworn in as Director of National Intelligence by Kamala Harris on the day after Biden's inauguration, which was January 21st, 2021. That is the current Director of National Intelligence. So it's called a Counterrevolution of Competence. So clearly she's competent. She's a highly educated person with a great deal of experience. The question is she competent for the job she's got? And I say nay. So that brings us to the incoming candidate for that role, Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. In July of 2004, she deployed to Iraq with a medical unit and was awarded the Combat Medical Badge and Meritorious Service Medal. She completed officer training school at the Alabama Military Academy as a distinguished honor graduate. She was stationed in Kuwait between 2008 and 2009 as an Army military police platoon leader. In 2015, she became a major in the Hawaiian Army National Guard, and in 2020 transferred to the U.S. Army Reserve, where she was promoted to lieutenant colonel in 2021. As a Democratic Party congresswoman, in 2015, she called out then-President Barack Obama for refusing to denounce Islamic extremism. As a legislator, she introduced the Helping Heroes Fly Act, making it easier for severely wounded veterans to clear airport security screenings. She introduced a bill to award the Congressional Gold Medal for Filipinos and Filipino Americans who'd fought in World War II. Now, her record wasn't perfect from a MAGA point of view. In 2017, she introduced the Off Fossil Fuels Act, designed to get America to 100% quote-unquote clean energy by 2035, which is probably why Donald Trump didn't tap her for energy secretary. However, in 2018, this is 2 years before the 2020 shenanigans, she introduced the Secure America's Election Act. It was a bill that would require all districts to use paper ballots, which would yield an auditable paper trail in the event of a recount. In October of 2020, she joined Matt Gaetz in sponsoring a bill to drop criminal charges against deep state whistleblower Edward Snowden, and partnered with Republican Tom Massey to do the same thing with Julian Assange. Now, we don't have any data on what her record as the Director of National Intelligence is, because she hasn't been Director of National Intelligence yet. But I think if you look at the background of these two, you come up with two very different kinds of people. And the question is, what background set do you think would provide a better handle on being good at the Director of National Intelligence? I would much rather have a soldier than a lawyer in charge of our nation's secrets. And you can say, well, obviously the Director of National Intelligence needs to know the legalities of things, and yes, that's true, but that's why you have counsel. You have counselors who you can talk to, legal experts who you can talk to, but I don't want the lawyers in charge of national intelligence, especially ones who's basically shown that she's going to heavily redact any kind of an internal investigation into wrongdoings on the part of the CIA. That's the essence of what the deep state is. So to me, this is not a question of two equally qualified candidates. There's no question that Avril Haines is qualified. The question is, does she belong in that job? And when you've got somebody who has close ties with the Obama administration and its pro-Iranian foreign policy, these are not the people I want handling our secrets. So anyway, that's an example of what that first hot mic's going to be, and then I'm just going to do the same thing with the other sets of appointees, and it gives us a chance to put some actual information down so that people not only have some idea about who's coming and why they're good, but who they're replacing, and how that'll change the tone of the country, the security of the country, and the overall sense of trust in government. And I think that's really Donald Trump's number one challenge. Everybody says we got to drain the swamp. I don't want to drain the swamp. I wanted to drain the swamp in 2016. Now I want to burn the swamp down with flamethrower, which is great. And his appointees are all showing signs of being the kind of people that can go in there and clean out this thing. But once you drain the swamp, once you clean out the bureaucracies and the traitors and the 51 agents that knowingly signed false documents, once you get rid of all of those guys, you have to replace it with something. And Trump's real challenge is not going to be cleaning out the stables. Trump's challenge is going to be having you believe that the new stables are worth living in. You've actually got to replace the people that have run away with the government with people who are going to restore trust in the government. And as anybody knows, trust is something that takes a long time to build, but can be destroyed very quickly. And once it's destroyed, it is very difficult to get back. So I don't know. I hope you guys think it's a good idea. I'll do one of them or two of them. If it turns out that the numbers are 10,000 or more, I'll do all of them. If for some reason or another people just don't like them and they're just dropping off, then I'm going to adjust and call an audible, and we'll just do one or two. But it gives me something to tee off on, ready to go in case there's no news stories that are really right on the news cycle. So these appointments are fantastic. Back to what I was talking about earlier with the views. It's a little bit of behind the curtains kind of thing here. Our friend Marisha Dark here has been so valuable as one of the obviously the pillars of the Strata community, who's just done enormous amounts of wonderful things for me, and in his or her free time, sent me a link to a video, and I watched it for a change. It was a video about a bit from a guy whose name has eluded me. She'll pop it in there in just a second, I know. And it was about prioritizing your business objectives. The guy I forget the name of the guy, it's going to show up in a second, but he used to be a homeless guy, and now he has companies. Thank you, Alex Homazi. Yeah, so he runs these companies now, and he's real type A, and he's, I watched this video, and I thought, wow, this is interesting, and then he really got in the weeds, so I didn't watch the whole thing, but I got the main point. So Homazi's point was, ditch everything that's not your primary objective. Ditch it. I'm repeatedly said, the number of different shows and things that I want to do is just so overwhelming. And so I thought, well, which one of these shows do I want to prioritize? And then I realized, to my shock, horror, and enlightenment, that I didn't even really give much thought to what the primary mission really is. It was like, well, should I prioritize this show or should I prioritize that show? And then after a moment's reflection, I thought, well, maybe you need to take a broader look at what it is you're trying to do here. And that got me to realize, no, your primary mission really, Bill, is to grow your audience and your membership. You need to do both. And fortunately, these two objectives are directly in line. But your primary objective is to grow your audience and your membership. You grow your audience because you want to get the message out there, and you grow your membership because they're the people that want you to get the message out there. The Whittle Cinematic Universe. All of these things, the movies and all of the other projects, all the other shows, are all dependent on having the money to do them. And clearly, having spent the last 2 years pretty much on my own here because of financial constrictions, is not working. And in order to have more resources to apply to all of these other projects, my primary mission, which I really got from that video, so thank you so much again for that, Marusha, is to grow the audience and grow the membership. Now, turns out I've been doing a pretty good job of growing the viewership. In the last 28 days, we've increased it by 160%. We're not going to do that in the next 28. You know what? I take that back. I'm not going to say we're not going to do that in the next 28 days. I'm going to aim for 165% in the next 28 days. I'm just going to keep doing that. I had a talk with Stephen Scott, a delicate talk. I didn't want to step on any toes or anything, but basically I said, guys, we're really starting to pull ourselves out of. Thank you very much for all of this stuff, guys. I'll get to the super chats in a minute. Really got to pull ourselves out of this kind of life support system where right angles are doing 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 views. Let's really start running this thing up, because I did realize that once you start getting more views, then YouTube will send you more people. So I'm looking at the list of the last 10 videos, and they're all in the tens, 20,000s when they used to be in the 5,000, 6,000s. And so it's definitely working. It's going to take time, and this is what I use to comfort myself. And 20,000 is not really such a great number. Well, it's a great number compared to what it used to be. It's not a great number compared to what it was when I started, but it's not the same world that when I started. And I'll look at somebody who's doing reaction videos to liberal tears melting down, oh, look, here's another version of the same clip I've seen 400 times already, and it's got 675,000 views or something. And I think, man, I'm in the wrong line. Yeah, but that's not my mission. So in the comment section, I just took a glance over there, and Marusha said, well, what is your target audience? And my target audience is American patriots. That's who I talk to. I talk to people who are practical, people who love this country and who are law-abiding citizens and like to hear common sense spoken in a way that is clear. And the brand is not only common sense, but common sense backed by evidence, and in some cases backed by overwhelming firepower, which is why I wanted to read you that hot mic thing, because it's one thing to say, oh, these, like I said, it's one thing to say, oh, these are great appointments, oh, fantastic, it's so exciting. It's something else, and this is what I'm doing that's unique among people like, oh, I don't know, just Mark Dice, and I discovered Steve Turley just before the election, only a couple weeks before the election. Never heard of him before. I just soaked up everything he put out for in the 3 weeks prior to the election. I mean, I was watching he's doing 2-3 shows a day, and I thought, great. So, but what I can do that I don't see a lot of other people doing is I just got a natural affinity for I know how to make arguments. When I was, just to backtrack again, I know I just discussed it. I don't want to flog it to death, but when I was looking at, let's talk about how awesome Tulsi Gabbard's going to be as NDI. And then I said, well, who's she replacing, and how is it going to be different? When Turley? I think I got him right. Steve? People are saying, did I get Dr. Steve? Dr. Steve, your Patriot professor, keeping you sane in these insane times. Turley. Yeah. So I did not apply to Jubilee. If you can stay on me about that, great. But I did not. I've been just completely whacked getting all this stuff out the door. When I started looking at, what do I know about Avril Haines? I didn't know much. Then I'm just reading the biography, and I'm thinking, then I got an angle on it, right? It's like, okay, she's an attorney, she's a lawyer, and she's a professor. This is not who I want for the Director of National Intelligence. And I don't want a career spook either, like George H.W. Bush or I want somebody who's, the agencies, the intelligence agencies are out of control. They're weaponized against the American people. I want somebody from the outside to come in and fix them. And I think Tulsi Gabbard is an excellent choice for this, because she's shown that she can handle high-level administrative problems. I don't know what her security clearance is, but she's a lieutenant colonel, so she's got some kind of security clearance, obviously. And that's who I want. I want an outsider who loves the country. I want an outsider who wore the uniform, who was awarded, it wasn't just went to Iraq in a medical unit. She won the was awarded the combat medical badge. So she's seen what goes on out there, she's seen what happens to people when they get shot up. Now, I'm not saying there's not going to be a point when we need people to get shot up, but I am saying we might want to be not so loose on the trigger, perhaps. And I like the idea that she's concerned about people in uniform when it comes to things like getting the hell out of Afghanistan airport, as an example, protecting those people. So, anyway, that's basically the congruence of the two things. So I'm gonna be I had a conversation, lost the thread as usual. Had a conversation with Stephen Scott about this and how the numbers were noticeably better, 160%. And I said, guys, when we pick our topics, let's see if we can try to make a conscious effort to go for things that are, that are big stories. I don't care what the stories are; it's entirely up to you. But let's, kind of try and stay away from school board issues if we can, and I do some arcane things, on weapon systems and stuff. Let's just see if we can stay on what's hot, and big and important. And so we've done 2 weeks of right angles now, and the poorest performer of the 6 that we did performed better than just about anything we'd done before, and all the rest of them were north of 10,000 and continuing to grow. So I just got a really good feeling about it. I'm just feeling really confident. and feeling super confident about the future of the country. I'm almost giddy. The right angle for today was called "The Future's So Bright." The man's, I said he was 7 weeks away from inauguration. He's actually 9 weeks away from inauguration. But things are just happening so fast, and they're great. And I really think we do have a chance to, have a like a permanent realignment. The Whigs went out of business. The Democrats lost their brand, and they lost their soul. They're not the party of the working man anymore. It's going to take a lot to get them back. There's noises now among Democrats. You'll hear it every now and then on MSNBC. A person will be shouted down, but every now and then somebody will get out, we've really lost our way. And I want them to keep going down the road. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez removed her pronouns from her official bio. I'm telling you, I said for 2 years now we're past peak woke, and woke is starting to be a dirty word. It's starting to be poison for the people who are deploying the woke. It's been poison to us, forever. David Malin says the Gorn shall rise again. Yes, Gorn's going to do it again. I was singing the Charlie Daniels song, "In America." What a great song that is. It came out right after, or right around, the Desert One fiasco, which was, on par with the Afghanistan withdrawal fiasco, where we didn't have special forces that knew what they were doing. We went to try and rescue the Iranian hostages, and we were going to try and get them into the stadium, and we had helicopters and C-130s meeting at this point out in the desert of Iran called Desert One, and they land in the sand, and they haven't refueled correctly, and one guy's helicopter gets too close to something else. He collides with another helicopter. Fire spreads to C-130. There's nothing but American charred bodies on the ground. Everybody hightails it on out of there. So just a catastrophe. And it might have been as late as 1980, because Charlie Daniels sang this song called "In America," and I was, I could tell you when it was. It was 1979, because I was a freshman at the University of Florida, a sophomore at the University of Florida, and he's got these lyrics. It's like well, you never did think that it ever would happen again in America. You never did think that we'd ever get together again. Well, we damn sure fooled you. Real rednecky kind of stuff, but just, we're walking real we're talking real loud, and we're walking real proud again, and it's just a kick-ass song, and I haven't had that song come to mind for 40 years or something, and I'm just in the kitchen, next thing it's post-election, and I never did think that it ever going to happen again. We damn sure fooled you, and it's like, yeah, it really feels like it's really does feel like it's morning in America again. Now, all of these pathologies and poisons that are in the system are going to have to come out. They're not going to magically disappear. Those millions of military-aged, undocumented terrorists are not going to just magically leave. They're going to have to be dealt with. The destruction of our cities from the inside, the corrosion of the cities, and the lawlessness and the hopelessness and all that stuff, we're going to have to go in there and do that too. This is the thing, man. And I'm getting this sense from Trump that Trump is really serious about this. It's one thing to recover the government and all the rest of it, but you really can't have a healthy country as long as you've got cancer. And if you look at inner city Baltimore as an example, just as an example from The Wire and The Corner and all of these things, the hopelessness of what used to be a thriving, working class neighborhood, which is now nothing but bombed out, boarded up buildings that have had the electrical wires ripped out of the walls so they can, have enough money for a speedball that morning. We can't have these murder pits where 8,000 Americans are being murdered every year. Virtually all of the murder in the country is black on black crime in inner cities. Some people don't like to hear things put plainly, but that doesn't mean it's not true. That's what it is. And I was at the last college event I did, which was years ago now. I got into this argument with this young black woman who was there to protest me, and she said, "You're opposed to the Black Lives Matter movement?" I said, "I just think it's fraudulent." What? Basically, she might as well just said, "What, white boy?" I said, "Yeah, I think it's fraudulent. Of the total number of blacks that are killed every year, the percentage of blacks that are killed by guns every year by police is 4%, and in that 4%, that includes if a black man walks up to a cop and starts shooting into the police car, and the policeman returns fire. That's part of the 4%. That doesn't mean there's 4% blacks murdered by policemen. That's just in shootouts with the police. The total number of blacks killed by police in any given year, for the latest statistics we had, which I want to say 2017, 18, something like that, was 4%. And I basically said, if you're telling me that Black Lives Matter, and I agree with you in principle, the reason I think your organization is a fraud is because all you're doing is calling attention to what is 4% of your problem, and you're not only not addressing the 96% of the problem, you're actively discouraging any discussion about the 96% of the problem. That's not a serious organization. That's a propaganda front. And she didn't have an answer for that. So my point is, you can get the country to a place where inner city crime is confined to the inner cities, and the rest of us don't have to worry about it. And that is a kind of a solution, but it's not a cure. And you're not going to have a country, you're not going to have a healthy country as long as you've got this going on. Now, I'm not saying that the answer is to go in there and just spend tons of money like we've been doing. I think it's just on the contrary. But you can't ignore it, you know? And it needs to be said that for all of the people doing the shooting, that's still a small percentage of the population of those cities who live in terror because they have no protection from the government of the United States, which should be a force of law and order and fairness and justice. We live in an imperfect world, and we're imperfect people, and it will be implemented imperfectly, but the goal should be rule of law and justice for every American, no matter where they live. And if you're gonna say to yourself, well, the inner cities are not my problem, because on some level they're not, and you can say rightfully and truthfully enough, you can say, well, they voted themselves these problems, because that is also true. You know, they keep voting themselves Democrat. Atlanta's coming up on 170 years or something without a Republican. All of the big cities have gone for 60, 70, 80 years without a Republican. And you can say that they've basically brought this on themselves, and you'd be right, but it doesn't solve the problem. The problem doesn't go away. You got to go after these problems. This brings me back to Mitt Romney's strategy and his famous line, you know, which cost him some votes. Not that he was ever in any danger of winning that election in 2012, no matter what we thought about it. But when he said, look, 48% of the country, 49% of the country's lost to us. They're dependent on the government, and we'll never get them. You know, it's like, Mitt, if you're running for president, anybody running for president, and I know this sounds like hyperbole, but I mean this from the bottom of my heart. If I was running for president of the United States, my objective and my strategy would be to win 100% of the vote. I want 100% of the vote. I want every single person in this country to vote for me. And I want to give them a reason to vote for me. Everybody. He got there and he said, don't worry, it was a California fundraiser. Don't worry, we're writing checks here today, but I don't want you to worry that your money's going to be spent in California, because we're not going to win California. And I'm thinking, yes, I understand this on some tactical level. Yes, I get it on a tactical level, but on a philosophical level, at a moral level, at a spiritual level, this is just bullshit. It's just ridiculous. You know, you should be in there saying, we're going to win California. If we don't win California, it won't be for lack of trying. Well, we have to marshal our resources. No, you don't. No, you don't. You got to go in there. It doesn't cost you any money to go into these inner city churches and sit down, and instead of giving a speech, sit down, listen, and talk to people. Trump has done this, and will continue to do this. And I don't know why that Romney or any of these other Republicans, Bush and McCain, why they're incapable of doing it. I think on some level, I think that they feel like it's beneath their dignity, that it's beneath the dignity for a Republican presidential candidate to go into an inner city black church and not lecture people or give them a speech. Just talk to them. Just talk to them and convince them. I think it's beneath their dignity. I saw Donald Trump on a WWE event, where he just punches what's his name in the face, Mr. Let's Get Ready to Rumble, and it's all theater. But I'm looking at this was before he was president, but I'm looking at the once and future president of the United States in a wrestling, ring, being insulted by this guy, and then just coming out and just getting right into the game and just clocking him. And I realized, Vince McMahon. I just realized, thank you, that he's well, first of all, he's having fun. He's just having fun, and secondly, it's not beneath him. It's not. Well, the president doesn't do that. Well, why not? Why not? Well, because the president needs to be above. Look, I'm a believer in presidential dignity, and I think that one of the things that I do have as a criticism of Donald Trump is that there are times when he could have used a little more dignity. But I'll tell you this: Trump 47 is not the same as Trump 45. He is a much, much, much more tempered individual. Trump 47. I watched this campaign. I didn't see any of these. I don't, like the remarks about John McCain. I prefer my heroes to not get shot down. That kind of. That line may have cost us Obamacare. McCain cast the deciding vote in favor of the Affordable Care Act. It's an own goal. It's a self-inflicted injury. He's much, much, much better now, and he was terrific on Rogan. So all of this to say, I'm just feeling super good about all of the signs, all of it, and I want this coalition that he put together for the 2024 election. I don't want this to disappear in 2028. I want it locked in, and I want it much, much bigger. So that means that things have to get better, and they have to get spectacularly better, and they have to get spectacularly better before 2026, because history shows that the midterm election, especially after a president's first 2 years, if he takes the House with him when he comes in as president, it flips. It almost always flips. If we spend these 2 years and clean up this mess and get everything humming and get the prices down and the streets are safer and cleaner and all of this woke nonsense goes away and stress levels go down and all of that, then you just put the Democrats out of business. If you go in there and you make a major effort to improve the lives of black Americans, and Trump takes his percentage of black men from 25% to 50%, and black women from 10% to, 25, 30%, something like that, then the Democrats never win again. He pretty much peeled Latinos off of the Democratic Party, and they've lost working men. I want the Democratic Party to be peacefully put out of business by better competition. I don't want them banned. I don't want any violence. I don't want any of that stuff. I would just like them to go out of business because they Bud Lighted themselves into irrelevance, and they earned it through this whole Nazis, Hitler rallies at Madison Square Garden. They've earned it. So that's where I'm going to be, and that's what the message of this place is going to be. It's going to be about hope, but it's not going to be about blind hope. It's going to be about reasonable hope. What is reasonably hopeful? What can we do? How do we fix it? What are some actual solutions? And it's going to be about practical restoration of the country. We're just going to restore the place. We're going to make it better than it was before. So we'll see. Looking over here, I just see I'm just glancing at the comment sections and stuff every now and then. They're all terrific. I just see something every now and then, and here's one that caught my eye from Sarah Plaza. Says, I like it, Bill, but I wish he would work on his audio, get a better mic or something, or hot or cold, it doesn't matter, but his audio is scratchy and not pleasant to listen to. Are you talking about Trump? I think we were talking about Trump. I know he was complaining about his microphone guy or something. But man, Trump is not fooling around. That speech of him sitting down saying, if it turns out that that your university is discriminating on any racial basis, you will lose your accreditation. You'll lose your endowments. We'll sue your endowment for restitution for the victims. I thought, holy God, man! I mean, this is like Christmas morning, man, and it seems to be working. If he can pull it off, it'll be like the end of Lord of the Rings, and we've been waiting for this for 12, 15 years. But I've been waiting for this since I've been doing this with you guys. The first Stratosphere launcher was 2012. We've been talking about, would we ever live to see the fall of Barad-dûr? Would we ever see the tower come down and the big red eye just go pop, gone? It's feeling possible. Got to be careful about giddiness and being over optimistic and overconfident. But I'm feeling it. I'm really, really feeling it. Marisha Dark says we plan to protest by giving our enemies everything they ever wished. Yeah, just let them they've already put themselves out of business. Just keep the arms open. When I did the thing about with malice towards none, I knew there'd be a lot of people who would say, no more mercy. These people have crossed the line. And as far as the perpetrators are concerned, I'm with you. I should have clarified that. There was one line I wish I'd put into that, and that was, we want the voters, we want the people who've been displaced by the party, the people who love America and still end up voting Democrat, but the war criminals need to hang. I'm not one of those guys who says, we should just let, Hitler and Tojo just walk home and, call it square so they can come at us again. No. Mike is a little hot. Yeah, we've had some, Stephen Scott, so I guess we're talking about right angles and stuff. Stephen Scott's audio for the last week especially has been like 15, 16 dB too low. So I've had to boost it. Sad Wings Raging says, I want justice. I want justice too. And speaking of wanting justice, there's Rand Paul looking into into how COVID was handled. Rand frickin' Paul, MD, me doctor. It's just amazing, It's amazing. Dr. Fauci belongs in jail. He's a mass murderer. He took funds from the United States after he was legally banned from doing so, set up essentially a shell company, got money into the Wuhan research lab, virology lab, because he wanted to do his gain-of-function research, and he couldn't get it done in America because it was against the law, so he paid the Chinese to do it. And the next thing you know, there's millions of people dead because we're taking viruses that can't infect humans, but if they did infect humans, would be tremendously fatal and dangerous. COVID was a relatively low mortality, in fact, compared to other pandemics of yellow fever and influenza in the 1900s, Black Death and all the rest of the stuff. It's pretty mild as pandemics go, but we have such a huge population, still millions and millions of people that died as a result of this. And so, there you go. Bill's mic is too hot. It's too hot right now. I keep seeing these mic things, and I don't want to lose the thread here, but in YouTube, it's all they're talking about. Yes, on the mic, can't stand it. Is it my mic? Whose mic? I can do something about it. I'm just catching fragments. Bill, turn down our mic. Okay, so it's probably just YouTube. Hang on. YouTube. Okay. I will I will lower the YouTube mic, and I'll lower it some more. Okay, how's that? I don't generally monitor the YouTube mic. I usually keep a look at the rest of them. Don't listen to them. My God, my mic is fine. Sounds fine to me. It's a civil war. Civil war is ravaging the strata community. Who knows? Who knows what's going on? Your mic is fine, but no, it's too hot. It's too hot. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and there's going to be nothing but bodies in the streets. Get a noise gate in OBS to limit the max volume incoming. I can just turn down the inputs. But I'm looking at these things, and I'm, at least on the Twitch stream, I'm right where it needs to be. I haven't clipped it all, and it's just into the yellow. Just when I really get hot, I just barely nudge into the red. Okay, so, well, Spanky says it sounds great to him on headphones, and headphones is the gold standard of these kind of things. All right, so why don't we jump into the questions for tonight here and see what we get. But 165% increase in views is making me happy, and I'm going to just keep the content a-coming. It's too low now. All right, I'll go back and turn it back up a little bit. I'm going to adjust the volume based on whoever makes the last loud noise in the comment section. Okay, test. Boo, we need to... Yeah, you could probably calibrate these things, I suppose. I could get a NTSB bars and tones. Just the preamp is set to high. That person knows what they're talking about. Ben? Yes, so the problem is not... The problem was not on OBS and YouTube. The problem was in the preamp. He's right. So I'm taking those levels down. Now I'm going to boost the output levels a little bit. And yeah, so let me bring that up a little bit. There, that should be better. My mom is too high. Your mom. Let me get these super chats real quick, and then we'll dive into the comments here. Single cell organism with a $10 super chat, nothing attached to it. Thank you very much. I so appreciate those kind of just here, have some money kind of things. It's very, very kind of you. Going back up to the top of the stream here. We already talked about Joseph Kozenzal, who became a city commissioner. Thank you for the super chat there. Here's Dave Cassie. Bill, I want to shout out to my best friend, a great American patriot, Bob Morrill, beg your pardon, Bob Morrill, who worked tirelessly at Trump's standouts here in Massachusetts. Well, Bob, you are part of the biggest political victory in the history of the country, and I've been saying during the entire run-up and in the days after the election, the Republicans had a ground game that I just didn't recognize. I mean, it was phenomenal. The ballot chasing in Pennsylvania, especially in Pennsylvania, but boy, Massachusetts, close second. But in all seriousness, Bob, thank you for saving the country, because that's how elections are won. It's just that simple. Voter registration, get out the vote. That's how you win elections. And when we decided to embrace early voting and mail-in voting instead of digging in against it as we had before, they had no way to. They couldn't stop the machine, because when they stopped the machine in 2020, they stopped the machine in the middle of the night in 2020 because they were up by millions of votes of votes that were in the bank. This time we were the guys with the votes in the bank. There was never any point where they could have stopped the machine and we wouldn't have won. So I think that had a lot to do with it. I think that's really got it. Looks like Dave Reels are real. Or Dave Reels area, sorry. Dave Reels area 51. I'm sorry, when it's all one word, it's very hard to see. GOP's motto should be go out and get every vote all day, every day. Yes, hire people to do this. be delighted to contribute to people who did nothing but get out the vote. We should start getting out the vote for the 2026 elections now. Once again, Sadwin's raising with a super chat for the tappy jar. That has not gone away. Have no fear. I'm fighting back against this conspiracy things, which is not even conspiracy theories anymore. It's like they kind of want me to dress well. What happened? You know, where did all the extra votes from 2020 go? I don't want to be that guy. I just don't want to be that guy. So we'll see where that ends up. Brian Woodridge with the super chat says, this is off topic, but I've been sad watching my Facebook friends losing their minds since the election, and the reactions over his appointments continue in the same vein. Thanks for what you do, Bill. I'm with you too, Brian. Part of me, when I see them freaking out like this, and especially when I see them saying, I'm never going to talk to my parents again because my dad voted for Trump. They're dead to me now. On one hand, it makes me furious. On another hand, it makes me sad. It makes me question their sanity and their humanity, and it makes me wonder, what is it about the left that is so consumed by politics that they prioritize their lives this way? And the only thing I can think of is it's all they've got. This is all that progressives have, is their politics. They don't have religion. They don't have. They don't seem to have hobbies. They certainly aren't having any fun. How can you have fun when there's so much injustice in the world? And it's just this. It's not even an echo chamber. It's a particle accelerator that they live in. You know, they're having these meltdowns. We voted away all our rights. Well, first of all, taking away all our rights. The rights you're talking about is the right to kill your own children, but that is not duly enshrined in the Constitution. And furthermore, it wasn't taken away. It was just passed to the states. And this howling about, you know, oh, they hate us and they're coming to kill us. And they're serious. Well, semi-serious anyway. They're serious enough to cry about it, but they're also not serious enough to run for the woods. Don't forget that every single TikTok you ever saw of somebody melting down involves somebody setting up a camera, reaching forward, pressing the record button, and then going back and editing. They probably did 4 takes on it because they didn't like the lighting or something, you know. So, you know, boom. I feel so sorry for those people, and I've been a victim of it. I mean, I used to love going to my family's Thanksgiving dinners. There were 70 of us at one of them. And, you know, my Aunt Marty and Uncle Rock sponsored them, and then it got passed down to one of my cousins, and they're very, very liberal, and I would go, and I never opened my mouth. I had no desire to talk politics. I wanted to get away from politics, and they just wouldn't leave me alone. They just kept poking. I just finally said, all right, so either I take the poking or I shoot back, which is not going to be pleasant for them because I'm a professional, or I just don't go. So that's where it got left. But it is not a two-way street. Victor Davis Hanson points this out. Prager points this out. These are powerful intellects. Neither one of which are known for, you know, erratic mood swings. They all point out this is asymmetrical. It's not completely unheard of, but it's got to be 95-5 in terms of the number of people say, you and everybody I love are dead to me now if you voted for that man. You're dead to me. I hope you all die in a fire. Wow. That's really it, huh? And you know what's most insulting about that is, the thing that's the hardest to take about that is that people will tell their own family members that they're dead to them. They spent 40 years with these people and loved them and were raised by them and helped raise them and take care of them. And all of those 40 years of personal association and love of those people is overwritten by Rachel Maddow saying that you're a Nazi. That's the part I'll never understand. You know your dad, you love your dad voted for Trump, and only people that vote for Trump are Nazis, so now your dad has to be a Nazi, and I don't understand how people can be that blind and callous, and well, they're just filled with rage and hatred, which is why they accuse us of being filled with rage and hatred. Dalen Fillinsworth, lovely name. It's awesome. Hey, Bill, side note, just finished your America's Forgotten Heroes podcast. Fantastic. Do you have any new series in the works? Yes, I was going to be doing one on the Navy. That looks like that's been short-circuited. Trying to say, hey, look, the atmosphere has changed a lot in the last 2 weeks. A lot. I think people want something to feel good about. I don't know if we want to be doing stuff that just makes people feel, dirty, but it's right now it's tentatively called Up the Rabbit Hole, where we look at, popular delusions and the madness of crowds and try to find our way out of them. So we'll see. I think that's it. I think we're caught up. Yeah, Marisha said someone suggested that the Never Trumpers write down their predictions for what they think he'll do and then check back in 4 years to see how many don't come true. I would not only have them make their predictions of what they think is going to happen, I'd also like them to write down the due date. At what point do you think you will be rounded up and put into camps? What do you think it'll be? 4 months after the election? 6 months? Whatever. My gosh, look at that. Nuki 187. Hey, Bill, old fan here, listening since TSL number 1. Wow. Any plans on making movies anymore? I remember you had a big plan on several. Yes, I do. I've been. So I'm the guy in the I'm the guy in the hamster wheel. One of the things that was in this video that Marusha recommended that I talked about earlier, which I think is a really great point, was the guy was saying, instead of trying to spin your wheel faster and faster and faster, just make a bigger wheel. If you make a 10 times larger wheel, you will get in one revolution of the big wheel the same distance covered as you would get in 10 revolutions of a smaller wheel. Instead of trying to make your wheel run faster and faster and faster, get a bigger wheel. I thought, wow, that's freaking brilliant. So that's kind of my short-term thing, is to do everything I can to increase the number of views, because the more views we get, the more views we'll get. And then the more views we have, the more potential members we have, and new members and all the rest of it. So, there we go. So, yeah, thanks. All right, let's go to the questions and see what we can see. Dawn Girl says it's such juvenile behavior. That's a great word for it, Juvenile. It's just petty, childish, teenager kind of, I hate you all, You made me get a haircut. Kind of. It's just childish. My mic is scratchy. We'll go back to the mic again. Well, I'm not going to spend any more time on the mic tonight because we're doing the show live. This is the best microphone, that's the best USB microphone made. It's not, in fact, it's not a USB microphone because it goes directly into amp and a preamp. I can go through, take a look at all those levels and make adjustments. I'm not an audio guy, but I can definitely go in there and at least kind of, center up the needles. The bitchin' Camaro is coming along, by the way. I'm really digging working on that. I'm really, really enjoying working on my car. I never thought I would say that, but it shouldn't be such a surprise because I enjoyed working on the airplane, but I really, really love working on the car. And doing it small step by small step. I didn't get the interior lighting that I want. I got the minimum package that they were selling me. They were telling me that I was getting something different than what I got, but I didn't catch it in time. But I, got the standard doors with the plastic and no interior lighting on the doors. So I found a door on eBay, door interior panel for $220, and it's on its way. Yeah, Bill's car is named Glacier Girl. Yeah, exactly. Bill's car is named Rip Off Ronnie. Uh, but anyway, all right, here we go. Richard Kelch says, my 2013 Camaro SS is awesome too. 700 brake horsepower after some improvements. I had a 2012, Richard, with the interior lighting kit, the heads-up display. I love that car so much. I'm not going to get into the story again. I've told it too many times in the recent future, but it developed a problem with the air conditioning within 2 months out of going after warranty. They told me it would cost $6,000 to fix the air conditioning. I thought, I don't want to go through this again, and so I got a 2018, and they sold me the 2LT when I thought I was getting a Rally Sport, and I just, but the 2012 I bought very carefully. So that 2012 2013 Gen 5 Camaro was my favorite car ever. Loved it. But my formerly 2LT 2018 Camaro is now approaching Rally Sport standards with the LED headlights, taillights, side lights. Going to get the SS instrument cluster. I'm going to get that baby up there to SS standards. Going to be a super sport. Okay, TSL questions for 1118? No, that can't be right. For 1114. Thank you, Marusha, for getting these things organized there and setting up the forum for them. Here we go. I'm just going to scram over them and get a rough idea of what we got to tackle tonight. So we got a Jacob Belchek, we got a Roadrunner, we got an Austin Pulaski, we got a Bob Knife, we got a Steve Young, Marusha Dark, Eric Blake, Dave Newland. Yeah, we can do those. Okay, Jacob Belchek. Hail, Bill. Hail, Jacob. It's always so good to hear from you. I've had a glorious week of seeing my enemy flee before me and listening to the lamentations of their women and their men. And I assume you're a biologist. But I have to ask you, after 4 years of lawfare and scheming, why is the left being accommodating? They're not being accommodating. They just don't know what to do. They're going to get nasty come January. Don't you worry. They're going to go right back to their nasty selves. Kevin Eric Snell in the YouTube commentary wins the internet for the night. He said, Camaro. A Camaro? Oh, yeah, my folks drove it up here from the Bahamas. Was it a bitchin' Camaro? Bitchin' Camaro, got a bitchin' Camaro. I have a bitchin' Camaro. I love my bitchin' Camaro. I had a second-gen Camaro as well when I was a kid. I had a 1970 Camaro. I bought a 1976. Loved that car too. Especially loved the square shifter on that thing. That thing was just badass. All right, back we go. I don't trust it, but they're talking about peaceful transfer of power while President Trump and company keep recruiting people who, at least from their words, are going to be devouring government agencies for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This may be them being nice because they've got a nasty surprise in store. This may be them being nice because they've stuck their brand on not being election deniers and peaceful transfer of power. That would be the most charitable explanation, so therefore the least likely. And it may be that they're just plain beaten, not permanently beaten, just in shock, like coming out of the trenches, like shell shock, waiting to recover their nerves so they can go back to their nefarious schemes and stratagems. The memes flow like wine. For instance, word around the internet is that Brandon Herrera, a gun YouTuber who nearly won a Republican primary race in Texas, is being at least entertained as being the ATF head. For the last few years, Herrera has been designing and building a 50 caliber AK platform rifle, basically just for kicks. Per his ex, he will hack, slash, and cripple the ATF in ways that it will never recover from, culminating in a request for President Trump to disband it entirely. Bill, I'm a knee-jerk pessimist, but things like this are some of the most beautiful things I've ever read. This is what I've been talking about for the whole show so far. I literally had tears in my eyes reading the DOGE announcement, Department of Government Efficiency. Me too. But the left's relative peace on all of this has me very worried. As we bask in victory, what do you think we should be watching for? What would a victory disease look like? Now that got my attention. Do you think the left is planning something to upend all this before it starts, or has Trump's sweep been so effective that they really have no options? I think probably the meta explanation for this stuff, Jacob, is that this election shook them enough so that they realized that they have lost their 80-year coalition. It's not the Obama coalition they've lost. They've lost the FDR coalition. The FDR coalition was basically the Democrats were the party of the little guy, the working guy, and the Republicans were the party of the rich, uptight snobs and yacht clubs and country clubs and so on. Along comes Johnson, 20 years after FDR, and basically buys the black vote and publicly announces he's going to have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. He may have been off by 140 years. But basically, in the Johnson administration, in the Great Society, the idea was we're going to give government handouts to blacks to make them dependent on the government. And so as long as we keep buying them and buying their votes, then they will become the hardcore bedrock of national election votes, which is exactly what happened. That's why the Democrats own inner cities, because they own black voters. They used to anyway. If the Democrats don't get 80% or more of the black vote, they don't win national elections. There's never going to be another Democratic president again if they don't win 80% of the black vote. And Trump came very, very close to peeling that threshold off. He should be looking for 100% of the black vote. And we should be going after black voters and Latino voters, not because they're ethnic groups that we need, but because they're Americans who can be brought into the light. I think, I personally, in fact, there's no question in my mind whatsoever. It's almost an absurd thing to say, but I know, speaking for myself, as a rhetorician, I could convert black and Latino voters to Republicans much easier than I could ever convert white liberal women. Much easier. Their votes are predicated on the belief that this is the only way they've got to survive, or it's at least their best hope for survival. They're dependent on the government. They can't vote against it. I would go in there and provide them with an alternative. If you provided them with an alternative, I'm sure they would take it in enough numbers to doom the Democratic Party forever. But the rich white liberal women, these are the problem. That's the demographic that you really got to isolate. These are the people who like, and the View is their, Valhalla. And so when you listen to them, when you listen to these rich liberal women on MSNBC, they're saying, I don't know what all the fuss about the economy is. So what if eggs are more than $3? It's not a big deal. Just you spend a little bit more on groceries. And it's like, this is exactly the kind of people that are the problem. They don't have to worry about things like budgets. They don't have to worry about anything. They're all well off. They've all got, relatively good jobs. They're single. They don't have any expenses. They've got their own cars and their own mortgages and their own cats, and they're miserably unhappy, and they've utterly given up on men because they've become undateable. They're just plain nasty, toxic, mean-spirited harpies, and men want nothing to do with them. Men are going their own way, and they are just plain melting down. And when you look at all the meltdown videos that have come out of this election, pretty much virtually, they're young, mostly white women and liberal women. And this whole 4B movement is hilarious. We're not going to have sex, and we're not going to talk to men, and we're not going to do anything. Well, conservative men wanted nothing to do with you. Conservative women are not on this boat because conservative women are lucky enough to date conservative men. So all it means is there's going to be fewer liberals out there, fewer abortions. How can we, Trump has said a couple times, we're going to win so much we're going to get tired of winning, and he's 9 weeks away from taking power, and it's it's already too much winning. But victory disease is something, you're right. The Japanese did so well in the beginning of World War II. They got so overconfident they called it victory disease, and it ended up costing them the war. So we need to be on our lookout for that. When the polls were looking good, Instapundit and everybody else is saying, don't get cocky, don't assume that we've won. Get out there and vote like your life depended on it. It is possible to succeed without becoming a victim of success, but you've got to be on your guard for it. So I'm really glad you, really glad you brought that up. Yeah, the Democrats are terrified that they've lost their 80-year coalition. That's why they're so disorganized and polite right now. They're off their base. They don't know what the hell to do. And there's a certain amount of intelligence to that. When you don't know what to do, usually the best choice is to do nothing. It's not always the best choice. If you're on fire, I would say run. But if you don't know what to do, it's often best to do nothing until you get an angle on it. I told this story before. It's a very short story. I just love it because it's directly connected to this. True story. Back in the days of commercial aviation, when they were still flying propeller planes, those are very unreliable engines. That's why they had 4 of them. And there was a case where there was a captain who was a pilot during World War II, and he was they had an engine failure. He had a young co-pilot, then a second engine failure. Then they had a third engine go out, and they were on their way down. They weren't able to hold altitude. And the co-pilot is in a cold sweat. He's sure he's going to die. And he looks over at this, this white-haired old captain who's in charge of the airplane. He looks over, and the captain is taking his watch off, and he's winding his watch. And the co-pilot says, "What are you doing? My God, don't you realize we're in an emergency?" And the pilot turns to the co-pilot and says, "Son, ain't nobody ever got killed winding a watch." And I love that story. I love it. So I don't know whether they're doing it out of wisdom or out of panic or out of not knowing what to do, but ain't nobody ever got killed winding a watch. What that captain was doing was he was trying to figure out what was going on and stopped and postponed acting on something that could have made it worse. Don't just flounder around and do something that when you might make it worse. It's like Buckaroo Banzai said, don't tug on that. You don't know what it's attached to. Yeah, I think that's basically it. Roadrunner, greetings, friend William, and greetings and solicitations to you. Did I say greetings and solicitations? Greetings and felicitations to you, Roadrunner. I know you like living in California in spite of the political environment, but things may be getting worse there next year. Oh, hooray. According to the LA Times, the person who lost the presidential election by a landslide is now the person leading in the polls to become the governor of California. Can the residents of your state really be that stupid? I'm really looking forward to your first Story Mechanics episode. Please keep up the great work. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it, too. It's very difficult for me to get this thing lit. I'm having the hell of a time getting that practical set up for Story Mechanics. I am assuming by what you're saying, let's just click on the link to make sure I got this right. Governor Kamala Harris, new polls find she'd have a clear advantage. Oh my God, from your lips to God's ears. Roadrunner, let me leap in here and tell you something. If Kamala Harris were governor of California, that would be the best thing that could happen to us. Absolutely be the best thing that could happen to us. There's only one person out there that I genuinely worry about, and that is Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is Satan on earth, and he is. You look at a picture of Gavin Newsom, and you realize if you're going to make the Omen movie, Gavin Newsom is who you're going to cast to be the Antichrist. Handsome guy, charismatic guy, laid back. Everybody in California just swoons when he gets on the TV set, and he is dangerous because Gavin Newsom, unlike Kamala Harris, is capable. He's smart. He's savvy. He's very, very good on TV. He is dangerous. If Harris were the governor of California, things would fall apart faster. That's what we want. The reason we won so big in 2024 was because the country had gone so far to hell in the 4 years since 2020. It had just gone to hell so fast that there was no getting away from it. So yeah, I would love to have Kamala Harris be governor of California because that would be what it would take to get a Republican back in office again. A real Republican. Talking to you, Arnold. How do you explain these Arnold Schwarzeneggers and Dick Cheneys and Bill Kristols and all these people endorsing Harris? How do you explain that? You know? How do you... I honestly cannot understand how you could do something like that. How petty do you have to be? How childish do you have to be? You know? It's ridiculous. So yeah, I did not hear that, but if she's ahead of Newsom in the polls, then that makes me so bloody happy. What Newsom's up for re-election in 26. Newsom is a threat for the presidency in 28. I'm telling you, I've seen him at work. He's very, very good at it. So ideally, I didn't think there was any way that Newsom could lose in 26, but if Harris beats him in 26, if she runs against him, then that means Newsom's out of the picture for at least a year prior to the 28 presidential elections. He's not the governor of California. He's just a guy. DeSantis is going to have that problem, but, you know, Vance has now moved into the second place position, so hard to say. Austin Pulaski. Hey, Bill, I'm glad you like the songs. Of course you can use them. We'll love to see what you came up with. It's nice that you like the lyrics. I just wish I could take credit for them, but that was AI too. My role was mostly just curating, tossing out the bad stuff, and deciding what was good enough. If you need me to send you the audio files, let me know how I should best send it to you. If you could send a link to info@billwhittle.com, Austin, and just put in the header audio files for Bill. It'll go to Shelley, and Shelley will forward it to me. And I loved them. I loved the Mace Mattingly ones especially. I thought they were terrific. We played a little of them last time, and that would be great. Oh, PGT MR2 gets off a fantastically subtle burn. I guess he was talking about Harris. I just glanced over there. But he says the polls were rigged for her pleasure. You're going to have to think that one over, folks, but I got it. I got it instantly. Fabulous. So thank you, Austin. Looking forward to seeing them. They were great. This is a great question from Bob Knife, and maybe, in fact, the shortest question in the Stratosphere Lounge history. Hey, Bill, please compare contrast the Tea Party movement to MAGA. Is there a connection between the Tea Party and MAGA? Thanks. That's a question. Yes. I was actually thinking about this, by the way. So I'm really glad you caught it, because I was thinking about this not too terribly long ago, about what was the difference between... Well, first of all, MAGA evolved out of the Tea Party. I don't think there's really any question about that. I did not get it, Steve. I'm sorry. I didn't. I'll have a look at my mail, but I didn't see it. Anyway, back to the question. It's impossible to imagine MAGA without the Tea Party. The Tea Party was a populist movement and put up some candidates that were pretty raw. And when the Tea Party started, nobody knew how to do rallies. Nobody knew how to get the permits. I was a big part of the Tea Party. I did 60 or 70 Tea Party events. At least that. I probably did more than that. And I love the Tea Party. But I think the Tea Party was the difference between Tea Party and MAGA was that the Tea Party was largely concerned, well, certainly came out of Obamacare, and was mostly a negatively oriented manifestation. In other words, we've got to stop this. We've got to stop this. The Tea Party was all about no. MAGA is all about yes. Um, the Tea Party was about we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that, we don't want to do this, but it was a populist grassroots movement that, as Barbara Denby points out, brought patriots together. And as the Tea Party just started to wane, just out of, I mean, the Tea Party lasted for a decade. It's a real deal. It wasn't astroturf like so many of these, like, remember Occupy Wall Street and those things. But the people who made the connections with each other during the Tea Party days used those connections when Donald Trump came along. But MAGA is much more optimistic. The Tea Party was we got to stop this. MAGA is we got to get back to what we were. We were great people once, and we will be great again. And that's why I think it's got much more. It's got legs, as they say in the business. It's a brilliant slogan, you know. Make America great again, because when you really think about it, it's, in fact, I don't know if I've ever really considered exactly how brilliant MAGA really is. But think about because we always walk into the left's rhetorical traps. They're masters of rhetoric. Evan Sayet says what he refers to as their rhetorical intelligence is off the charts high. They're great at telling stories, spinning narratives. They're great at finding. I was talking to my friend Adam earlier today at lunch, and he said his kids are in school, in a private school, religious school here in LA. And even then, they've got a book assignment, and so there are no classics. There's just books on, poor little black girl comes to this country, or poor little Puerto Rican guy goes to that country, or those are the choices. But his son was assigned a story that didn't have anything overt in it. It was about a Puerto Rican guy or Puerto Rican kid or something. But then the teacher said, read the book, and then I want you to make the case for Puerto Rican statehood as your writing assignment. Not discuss Puerto Rican statehood, not argue about it, not pick a position, but make the case for Puerto Rican statehood. And this is how they operate. They control the narratives. There are no other books to read except the books that they assigned you. And when they assigned you the books, that gave them a foot in the door for them to tell you how to defend their ideology and not to challenge their ideology. So they're masters of rhetoric. But think about the simplistic, magnificent simplicity of MAGA. Who could argue with Make America Great? I mean, when I say argue with, who could openly argue? The Marxists succeed because the Marxists cannot tell people they're Marxists. That's why when Barack Obama came out to say that he'd never heard Reverend Wright say anything about negative about white people, he did it in front of what looked like a U.S. flag factory. There were 35 American flags behind him when he tried to weasel out of and successfully weasel out of the Reverend Wright thing before the 2008 election. So they can never tell you they can never say out loud what they really believe. We know that they're Marxists. Democrats know, the progressive Democrats know that they're Marxists, and they know that they have to lie basically in order to get the idiots to vote for them, so that once they're in power, then they can do the Marxist things. But the beautiful thing about MAGA is, who can openly say they have a problem with making America great? Nobody. Nobody can come out and say, I'm against making America great. Kamala Harris is talking about, this wonderful country we live in, blah, blah, our democracy, and blah, 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 and that's not the people we are. No one can openly say, no matter, we know who hates America and who loves America. It's not a mystery which party is the patriotic party. That's not up for discussion. But they can't come out and say it. So the beautiful thing about MAGA is if they just said make America great, that wouldn't do it. By saying make America great again, it puts the left in the box. It basically is saying they have to oppose the make America great part because of the again part. Does that track for you? They have to be opposed to MAGA because MAGA is saying we used to be terrific until you Marxist bastards came along, and we can be terrific again. So they have to fight against the fact that it used to be great, but that puts them in a box where basically they have to be opposed to what part about making America great don't you like? And this is where they ended up. All those MAGA Republicans, it's too MAGA. You mean make America great? That's the slur? That's what you're going to use against us, that we think America should be great again? It's genius. It's genius. Make America great again. First time I saw Donald Trump, the first time I ever talked about Donald Trump was, I'm almost positive it was on a trifecta. No, couldn't have been. PJTV was done by then. But the first time we talked about it on Right Angle, and was when Trump first started to appear in the primaries in 2000 for the 2016 election. And one of the guys asked me, well, what do you think about Donald Trump? And I said, well, I like his hat. And he's turned into, a legend. And I think we're going to see an amazing period in time coming up. I really do. The thing that had me crying like a little baby on election night was that realization that maybe the crisis isn't coming. Maybe the crisis just ended. Maybe the last 4 years was a crisis. The Civil War was 4 years long. World War II was 4 years long. What if 20 to 24 was the actual crisis and we won? That thought overwhelmed me. I kept thinking, well, when the crisis comes, it's either going to be Trump or Harris that's going to deal with it. But what if that was it? Now it's just a question of the mopping up. Is when all the real killing and dying happens. Is the end of the last 6 months or 8 months, certainly the last year of any major war is where the real killing happens. Always that way. You wouldn't think so, but that's how it goes. But yeah, so I think there couldn't be a MAGA movement without the Tea Party, and having been a part of both, I have a soft spot in my heart for the Tea Party because of all the Tea Party events that I did. But even the name was a little, from a sheer rhetoric, branding, iconography point of view, the Tea Party it was kind of a weak name, and it was all of the iconography was, Constitution and the tricorner hats and the muskets and the Gadsden flag, and I always thought that this is all too arcane and archaic for people to really get behind. That we need Helvetica, black Helvetica on a white background. Our marketing for the Republican Party needs to look like Apple advertisements used to look. I just I don't know. I'm glad to be a part of both of them. And MAGA seems to be more fun. It's hard to believe that we've been, it's been 15 years since the Tea Party, and that's 15 years is a significant beating. That's a lot of beating. That's 2 terms of Obama and 1 term of Biden, punctuated by a term of Trump, which didn't get done what we should have gotten done, especially in the first 2 years of the Trump first administration. He had no idea how big and how deep the swamp was. He just didn't have any idea. I didn't have any idea either. I don't think any of us had any idea. But he knows now. And he's put some big guns on this problem. And I'm loving it. Okay, Steve Young, Marisha Dark, Eric Blake, David Newland. Why? It seemed like we get through it fast, but that's still a lot of ground to cover these. I really would like it if we could try to make these questions more questions than proclamations, because Bob Knife's question was really lovely. 1 or 2 paragraphs there aren't bad, but man, when you start getting into 3, 4, 5 paragraphs of questions, it's hard. Okay, Steve Young. Good evening, Bill. Good evening, Steve. American presidential elections are arguably act of war. You need foot soldiers. There he is again, John Eden, again with a $99 super chat. I just don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say other than thank you. Thank you, John. You are phenomenal. Phenomenal. I've never gotten over it, and I never will, ever. Thank you. American presidential elections are arguably act of war. You need foot soldiers, rhetorical ammunition, communications, transportation, intelligence gathering, and massive amounts of money on both sides. The Democrat army in this country has the right to accuse the Republican army of war crimes in the execution of their strategy, and therefore claim they should not be allowed to have government the voters have chosen when they win. It is never a war crime the first time, but the Democrats are trying to delegitimize the Trump administration again, just like last time. Yes. Question, what can we do to shut down the lies and slander from the Democrat propaganda when they hide behind the First Amendment? Well, not to be flip about it, Steve, but we could outvote the crap out of them. That ought to shut them up. It's a point that one of the main points about the election, one of the main takeaways is the mainstream media is no longer essentially a factor. It's on the table. It's there. It's a nuisance, but it is not a credible threat, and it's not an immediate threat. It's not even a potent threat anymore. But the other thing is that we found that they went to their toolbox. Racist wasn't strong enough. Homophobic wasn't strong enough. They went all the way to Nazis, got out the H-bomb of political mudslinging, and it didn't work. Nobody believed it. And this is it's not only a great example of the boy crying wolf, because they've called us every name under the sun. It's also a question of once you reach your top note, you can't go any higher than that. Once you deploy the Nazi, it's a Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden. And CNN showed the actual Nazi rally and the Sieg Heils and all the rest of it. Okay, where are you going after this? Now that you've hit this screeching note and it didn't work, where are you going now? That's one of the reasons why I think they're being quiet right now. They're just baffled. They can't understand how the American people voted for, like me. I just want a T-shirt that says "deplorable Nazi garbage for Trump." We owned it because we didn't take it seriously, and nobody took it seriously. Well, when I say nobody, I mean I'm not including the liberal lunatics who are having their meltdowns, but generally speaking, sane people, voters, didn't buy it. So on some level, Steve, I think your concern is moot at this point because they've deployed all of their rhetoric and we whipped them out of their boots. We whipped them out of their boots. They have nothing but ruins to look at for 2 years. So my hope is they'll continue to do what they've been doing. Accuse us of worse and worse and worse stuff. Next it'll be pedophiles, and well, they probably won't accuse us of being pedophiles on account of so many of them being pedophiles. They want to protect the pedophile. We haven't had a single question about Diddy yet. I might do that for Right Angles next week. But well, you want to talk about Moloch walking the earth. Hollywood is more, I was going to say depraved, I was going to say perverted, I was even going to say satanic, and none of those words really seem to do it justice. Hollywood is more demonic than even I had thought, and I worked there. I had worked there for 20 years, but I hadn't the faintest idea. And by the way, I mean, just since it came up, I think the thing that's shocking to me the most, there's so much to be shocked about the Diddy thing, but the thing that's so shocking to me is how many of these badass rappers, these hip hop guys who are like, they're just mean. They're so sure that they're the meanest MFs that ever walked the earth. How many of these guys are just hanging out in hot tubs each other? It's just the gayness of it is just stunning to me. I'm just absolutely shocked by how open all of this. Well, it wasn't open; it was kept under tight wraps. But now that the cat is out of the bag, uh, I'm just knocked out by, you know, the stories of these guys, and and I want to see the names list. See, there's many. Yeah, they are all a bunch of queers, says Eric. I couldn't agree more. They're all, well, they're on television. Um, the great thing about, see, I'm not, I don't. Joe Rogan is really interested in the fact that Trump is president. He's going to release the data on UFOs and John F. Kennedy, neither one of which is going to have anything in it of any substance whatsoever. But we could, in fact, I think not only could, I think we're virtually guaranteed to find out who Jeffrey Epstein's client list was, what happened to Jeffrey Epstein, who pulled the trigger on that. We've got Rand Paul looking into COVID, what was known and what wasn't known, how many people were separated from their loved ones and had their parents or their grandparents dying alone in a hospital, including mine, I might point out. My mom died alone in a hospital of COVID because you're not allowed to go see them. I want to know who's responsible for that. So when it comes time to reveal information, I want to know what happened to Epstein. I want to know who knew about it. I want to know who his client list was. And we're going to see names that are going to surprise us. And the name that keeps coming to mind, because I've seen it mentioned in relation to the Epstein Island, and I've just seen it, just seen this out at the outer penumbra of it. DiCaprio's mentioned, and a bunch of other people are mentioned, but out there in the just barely visible in the light of the campfire, just at the edge of the woods, is Tom frickin' Hanks. Tom frickin' Hanks. And if it turns out that he's involved with these kind of things, there are reports. I'm just saying what I've heard people report. So I'm playing the same trick on these leftists that they play on us all the time. We're not saying that the Republicans are Nazi, but sources are. But there are reports that Tom Hanks has been to that island. There's reports that Stephen Colbert has been to that island. And if it turns out that Colbert has been to that island, I want to know that. I want that information. I really want that information. The Tom Hanks of Philadelphia. Yes, that Tom Hanks. Yeah, that Tom Hanks. I tell you who's I suspect is not on that list is Johnny Voight, because John Voight got inoculated against this early. When John Voight became overnight superstar on Midnight Cowboy, he was actively pursued and seduced by the left, especially Jane Fonda and Tom Hayden. He did Coming Home with Jane Fonda. He won an Academy Award for that. And they wanted him really badly because he was, unlike the mousy-looking Marxists, he was the all-American looking boy. They wanted him big time. And John told me, look, I just come out of nowhere. I was just a kid. I didn't know anything about anything. And I've got all these people giving me all this, political information that I didn't know. And I don't think he ever really signed up, but they recruited him really hard. And John just said, no, this is all a bunch of crap. He's gone on to be probably the most outspoken patriot of the bunch. I've been really surprised and impressed by Rob Schneider Not so much surprised that he he's a conservative. Just pleased to see his career just suddenly just ignite, not explode, ignite, because now he's doing these sold out concerts because he's knocking down wokeism, and he's doing it really well too. So anyway, yeah, it's a strange world. But to answer your question, Steve, I don't think that anything that they can throw against us that they haven't already thrown, and they threw it, and we whooped them. So if they're smart, they're going to learn that calling us Nazis and white supremacists is a losing proposition. I just don't think they're that smart. I just think they're evil. So I just got a very. I'm not complacent. I'm just confident, about this stuff. Okay, Marisha Dark, Eric Blake, and David Newland. Here's Marisha. Hey, Bill, I originally had a different, darker question planned, but I'll save it for another time so as not to sour the mood since we should enjoy our present victory. I know how much you're a Star Trek fan, and one position I've often thought would be cool to add is Chief Science Officer. Said person would not be the science nor the official arbiter of what is science, but would rather serve as an advisory role to the POTUS on matters of science, and also who acts as a science communicator in the same way as the press secretary does. One of the first tasks I'd appoint to the role would be to figure out ways to prevent the office and related higher institutions from being ideologically gamed and captured. My personal pick would be Dr. Heather Haying from the Dark Horse podcast, but was curious to know who you'd appoint to such a role. P.S. Not sure if you're aware of this, but you can use Control plus / minus or CMD on the Mac to zoom in the browser in and out for larger and smaller text. Thank you. You sure can. That's useful. Thank you very much. That was very useful. Well, Marisha, to be honest with you, I think it's a terrible idea. First of all, anytime you start a new government agency or any kind of cabinet position or something, it'll never go away. And the last thing I want is and I mean the last thing I want is for there to be an official government science proclamation. Because while we may use our powers for good, the next time these guys get elected, then the official scientist will be there to say, oh no, global warming is real, no, the vaccine is safe and effective, no, yes, no. And it's not only bad for government and bad for the citizenry, it's bad for science. You can't have a spokesman for science because science doesn't need a spokesman, and when you have a spokesman for science, you're not doing science anymore. Not even an interpreter. That's why we fast track it to prevent it from being gamed. I'm not worried about getting it set up. I'm worried about what happens to it once it's set up. If there's a national science advisor, then that guy essentially becomes the Archbishop of Canterbury, because we live in a post-Christian age, whether you like it or not, although it's certainly turning the corner. And for many, 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 many people in this country, when you ask them what they believe in, they say, I believe in science, which is like saying I believe in a hammer or I believe in a screwdriver. What is your moral code? What are your religious beliefs? I believe in a screwdriver. A tool, you mean? Yeah, my entire philosophy is that a hammer is a tool. Science is not a philosophy. Science is not. When Carl Sagan tried to make Scientism into a religion, which is what he tried to do, whether he realized it or not, Carl Sagan, who I worshipped, I read everything, I learned so much from Carl Sagan, and I don't mean to take away anything that I actually got from him. I learned enormous amounts about life and not about life. And the stuff I learned from Carl Sagan wasn't the astronomy. I knew the astronomy. I didn't learn any astronomy from Carl Sagan. But the stuff like Broca's brain and Dragons of Eden and all that stuff, brilliant. But his entire pitch was, don't trust God who can't deliver on if you end up getting bubonic plague, you can pray or you can get penicillin. Trust science. That was pretty much verbatim quote from Carl Sagan. And he turned science into a religion because he's a scientist. And not only was he a scientist, he was the scientist. He was America's scientist. This is the role that Neil deGrasse Tyson has tried to step into, and the difference between the two is that Neil deGrasse Tyson's an idiot and Carl Sagan wasn't an idiot. Carl Sagan was a brilliant, brilliant man. And furthermore, Carl Sagan, I believe his heart was in the right place. He made some enormous mistakes out of blindness. He should have used his own baloney detection kit against himself. He would have saved himself a lot of trouble. But I believe he wanted that he wanted the best. He later openly admitted that he lied and put his credibility on the line by saying that there is going to be a nuclear winter. It's not just the atomic bombs, that if you launch nuclear weapons, the Earth will freeze and exterminate all life on Earth. He knew that wasn't true, yet he went along with it publicly because he was so concerned about nuclear weapons, not realizing that nuclear weapons has been what kept the world at peace since 1945. When I say at peace, I'm not talking about Vietnam Wars or Iraq or Iran or Afghanistan or any of these. I'm talking about France and England versus Russia, France, England, and Russia versus Germany, Austria, Italy, and Japan, that kind of thing. Civilizational leveling wars. But put the nuclear stuff aside, Carl Sagan tried to turn science into a religion, and all he did was lower science. When you politicize science, politicians will say, well, we're just doing this because of what the science says. Global warming is the perfect example of this. Climate change, because global warming can be proven or disproven. So once global warming could be disproven, they stopped saying global warming and started saying climate change. So if it's cold today, then it's the fault of capitalism. But if it's warm today, then that's capitalism's fault. If there's lots of hurricanes this year, it's because of capitalism. And if it turns out there are no hurricanes this year, it's because of capitalism. If it was global warming and you had, as we did prior to this year, record few hurricanes, that's a disprovable theory. So they had to change the name because you can't have anything that... Climate change is the most absurd... The climate's been changing. The climate has never been steady. Anybody with a rhetorical elementary school education in rhetoric could destroy this entire climate change argument simply by the word climate change, words climate change. But I digress. The main point is science should not have a spokesperson. Science is anti-authoritarian, and to put a person in position of authority as the government representative on behalf of science, or interpreting, I'm not even saying issuing proclamations on science. I know you're talking about more like a press secretary, a person who interprets the science, but once that position has been established, it will be used for totalitarian purposes. I can assure you of that. And it will have a serious amount of clout to it because a significant percentage of this country looks at science as their personal religion. I believe in science. You don't even know what science is. If you say you believe in science, when you say I believe in science, you've just proven to me you have no idea what science is. You believe in something that isn't science, because science is not a philosophy. Science is not a worldview. Science is not a moral code. Science is a tool. It's an instrument. It's an instrument to learn how the world works. I don't worship a scalpel, although a man I've come to like very, very much, not just respect, but like very much, is a Catholic priest named Father McTeague, and I've done his radio show many times, and about to do it again next week. He does a show called Stations of the Cross, and I love talking with him. I've done 5 or 6 of them, and Father McTeague was talking about this, and he said, somebody said to him once, I don't believe in all this religion stuff. He says, I believe in science. I believe in physics. And Father McTeague said, does that mean you celebrate Mass? And I thought, that may be the cleverest comeback I've ever heard. And I'm not sure that Father McTeague claimed that he said it or whether he heard somebody else said it, but nevertheless, that is the most good-natured, subtle, brilliant burn I've ever had. So you celebrate Mass? Is that it? I love it. I think it's great. So I'm against any new government agency or any new government position of any kind, but that one especially, I would fight to the death on. Schmuckmuck for the super chat. So it was the avatar for that looks like Sir Walter Raleigh or somebody of that nature. I have the strength to uproot mountains. My might shadows the world, but my horse can run no more. My horse I can manage, but what will become my wife? Wow. Who wrote that? It doesn't look like Shakespeare because the ruffled neck thing was, I think, preceded Shakespeare. Anyway, that's a lovely little piece of poetry there. I have the strength to uproot mountains. My might shadows the world, but my horse can run no more. My horse I can manage, but what will become my wife? Wow. Marisha Dark is not going down without a fight. She says the Enterprise is a military organization, meaning government. So was Spock's role as science officer a mistake? No, it's not a mistake to have a science officer on board a ship. It's a mistake to have a science minister in the Federation Council, a minister of science. Spock's role was not to. Spock's role was not political. It was advisory. And I know what you're proposing is exactly that. But what I'm telling you is it won't stay that way. It will go from advisory to what's the word I'm looking for? Proclamatory. See, I just made up a word. The Tyson Paul fight, who won? It says the Riz says Tyson Paul is up. Anybody let me know? Yeah, Lord Bio says Navy ships have meteorologists. That's like a science officer, exactly. But the meteorologist is not commanding the ship. No, who won between Mike Tyson and something Paul? What's his name? Oh, the fight is next. They haven't fought yet. Oh, it's just about to happen. I might have to tune into that. Is that being Jake Paul? Is that being streamed live? Not yet. Tyson yet to fight. It's about to start. I gotta watch that. Now I'm oh, it's on Netflix. Capital Geek, is that true? Tyson's going to destroy him. Everybody's saying yes. Was it over in 40 seconds? Oh. Oh, they haven't fought yet. Well, I'll tell you, I'm not going to get home in time to see it. But I am, I got to tell you, I can tell you this. For most of the time that he has been on the scene, I despised Mike Tyson from the bottom of my heart. I thought he was everything loathsome about. human nature. I just hated him. Hated him. And then something happened to Mike Tyson. And then I saw him in interviews where he was humble and meek and wise. And then for the last year or two, every time I see him, I like him better and better and better. Something happened to that guy. I just absolutely thought he was an animal who needed to be put away, if not put down. And now I find him to be charming and moving and interesting. Yeah, he grew up. Coconut said he certainly did grow up. But what a difference! What a change! PGTMR says he gave up a seat on airplanes for old ladies. People change, yeah, they do. Okay, so let's get on with the Eric Blake question. Excuse me while I water down here. Tonight, the case of the great big tomorrow. Bill, I submit that it may have been divine providence that delayed this week's Strata Lounge until after the posting of your right angle today. There you finished up with a brilliant insight that frankly solidifies my frequent state of vindication. Specifically, you laid out how Trump's approach to his second term in the spirit of Rudy's time as mayor of NYC has the attitude that too far off and evades our side, that nothing is impossible. Now, I figure you can see how that perfectly aligns with the point I made for so long. After all, nothing is impossible, nothing is irreparable. We've seen Elon Musk's example through his hostile takeover of Twitter and how it's inspiring others to follow his lead. Nelson Peltz, with Elon's support, by the way, going for Disney, Kevin O'Leary going for TikTok, Vivek going for BuzzFeed. Even our friend Jeremy is half-jokingly tweeting about making a bid for MSNBC in response to Comcast announcing it's going to sell it off. I personally prefer he go on for the similarly being sold off Ben & Jerry's for obvious reasons. Ben & Jerry's ice cream when, but I digress. Then, of course, there's Google being officially branded an illegal monopoly, as you recall, and now that Trump's won, we can more confidentially deem a breakup inevitable. Here's to our investors getting their legal ducks in a row to seize YouTube the moment the breakup happens. So, imagine, if you will, somebody similarly making a bid for the Boy Scouts, setting out to clean it up and to restore it to its former glory. To be clear, I'm not hearing any rumblings on that one, but as a Boy Scout myself back in the day, it's near and dear to me. Aside from Disney, it's a cultural institution I most want to see uncorrupted. Impossible, inconceivable. Like the man said, we'd better learn to dream big. How about it, Bill? Okay, so I'm trying to figure out what the question there is. The I'm looking for the actual question here. So certainly we're winning. We've been talking about that all night. Somebody making a bid for the Boy Scouts would be great. Somebody ought to go after the Boy Scouts. I don't know how expensive it ought to be. In fact, I don't know why people don't just band together. I don't know why parents and regular Americans, somebody ought to start a fund, a GoFundMe. That's really somebody ought to, that's actually a damn good idea. Somebody ought to start a GoFundMe account to buy the Boy Scouts back from whoever owns the Boy Scouts and return it to being the Boy Scouts for boys. That would be an excellent idea. I'd love to see the Boy Scouts come back. I think that'd be great. I don't think that the Boy Scouts are different than Star Trek and Star Wars. Canon is canon. You can't uncanon the canon. It's just cooked. I don't care anymore. If people have often asked me, what would you do to save Star Trek? And the answer is very, very, very simple. I would give it to Vic Mignogna. I'd give Vic Mignogna a ton of money, and then I would say to Vic, you're the man. Get yourself better supporting actors. You stay right where you are. You're terrific. The sets are great. The lighting is great. But ditch the ditch the Counselor Troy thing for your girlfriend, and ditch the just ditch the whole kind of that whole series was so brilliantly done, but there was an awful lot of you know, just ditch the womanism and the whole just scrape the patina of wokeism that you put over this stuff. The stories you were telling were great. The story where Kirk is stuck by himself on the ship and he has nothing to do but to turn the computer into his companion, and it assumes the personality of Spock. That is canonical season 1 original series Star Trek. Is absolutely freaking fantastic. So Star Trek is yours, Vic. Take it back to what it was, and I think if I were to read, if somebody gave me Star Trek, I would go back to the Kirk era. I would buff the Enterprise. You'd have to buff the Enterprise. You'd have to buff the props, but I wouldn't buff them to the point where they're unrecognizable. You know, I wouldn't. You can't have these wooden props in a modern science fiction thing. But I wouldn't do what J.J. Abrams did, which is just make it completely, absolutely unrecognizable. I would keep the bridge the way the bridge is supposed to look. I would just buff up the displays. The Enterprise design from Strange New Worlds is actually pretty cool, except for the fact that it's metallic. And the Enterprise is not metallic. The Enterprise is white. Starfleet ships are white. They're not metallic. They're white. And they don't do dogfights, and to his credit, they never did that on Star Trek Continues. They did the battles look like they're supposed to, where the Klingons or the Romulans are so far away you can't put the two in the same shot. Yeah, Star Trek Continues was absolutely epic and genius. He's one of the people I'm looking forward to talking to on Story Mechanics, so we just sit there and geek out about this stuff. Looking forward to that. So, go back and get the Boy Scouts first. That's a cultural institution that is irreplaceable, and it has not been canonically destroyed. It's just been AWOL. I agree with Dave, though. Enterprise, I'm not going to say Enterprise A because I think this numbering and lettering thing is just horrific. But see, the nice thing about this is, well, as usual, you can blame it on Next Generation. The Enterprise refit could have still been NCC 1701 because it basically wasn't a new ship. But once it got burned up into the atmosphere on Genesis Planet, then it's not NCC 1701 anymore. Then it's a new number. Hornet was CB8. Hornet was CB65. I'm sorry, Enterprise was CB6 and then CB65, and the next one's going to be, was it CB81 or 82? CBN 80. Enterprise was CB6. Then it became CBN 65. Then it became, the next one will be CBN 82. Is it 81, 82 for the new Enterprise? Something like that. So, but yes, the movie Enterprise, the Enterprise that first showed up in Star Trek: The Motion Picture is the most beautiful spaceship ever designed. It's absolutely frickin' glorious. That's the ship I would want. CBN 80. No, the Ford-class Enterprise won't be CBN 65A. Exactly. That's right. The new Ford-class Enterprise won't be CBN 65A. That's perfectly said, Dave. Exactly right. It's not CBN 65A, USS Enterprise, Ford-class. No. Eric Blake, even though it's metallic, yes, it's painted, or it's made out of white metal. It's not supposed to be metal. If it's metal, it looks alien. If it's metal, it looks mean and tough. It's a white ship. It's the White Fleet. It's the Great White Fleet. Enterprise is white. It's supposed to be white. It's a beautiful white swan out there in the stars. It's not some metallic piece of plumbing, you know. It just stop. They just have to constantly just dick around and just keep messing it up. Anyway, we got one left to go, and then I'm probably not gonna be able to watch the fight, but I guess I don't know. I already posted the right angle for today. Maybe I can go home and get there in time to watch it. Although I don't know if it's going to be over by the time I get there. We'll see, I guess. And finally, David Newland here. Hey, Bill, I know that you opined if Trump won this election would lead to a great mental health crisis. I'm not sure if you realized how quickly it would turn deadly. Yeah, Corey Burke, who worked for Blue Origin, lesbian who worked for Blue Origin, was living with her father. He voted for Trump, so she killed him with an ice axe. I didn't say a nice axe. I said an ice axe. She just murdered him. The same weapon they used against Trotsky. She said she was just really, really, really stressed. It was the day after the election, but she never said what she was really, really stressed about. But she was really, really stressed about the election. So, you know, they murdered somebody over it. Just plain killed him, you know. So we'll see. Canceled? What got canceled? Streaming issues on Netflix. People are pissed. Did this fight bring Netflix down? Is that what happened? So there's apparently breaking news about the fight here, which is, I have to give you some dead air while I find out what's happening. So was the fight canceled or was it postponed? Could somebody give me just a quick sentence of what they're seeing? So it looks like the fight on Netflix isn't going to happen. Someone called the Prime again. Got to go fix Netflix. Still on, streaming is choppy. Dave Big Booty says a whole family in Minnesota was taken out through murder-suicide because someone was angry that Trump won. Is that true, Dave? Well, obviously it's true if you said so. Castellan's watching the fight now. Says the streaming is choppy. Wow, it's happening. Castellan says he's watching the fight, so something's going on. Eric says the fight is happening, it's just that Netflix is overloaded. Man, his current wife, his ex-wife, and 2 kids. Was it the man who did the murdering? Yeah, the father who offed his family on election day. Well, that's what I'm not saying that's what they get. I didn't mean to say that's what you get, not meaning that's what you deserve. What I'm trying to say is this is the result of people buying into. Did he do it? Was it a mercy killing? Like, I can't have my children living under National Socialism? Is that it? Or was he just angry? You would think that would be national news. Well, certainly it would be national news if it had been a Trump supporter who killed his family because Kamala Harris had won. We'd be hearing about that. Man killed his wife and teenage boy, and a much younger son. So, just imagine what would have happened if a Trump supporter had killed his family because Kamala Harris won. We'd never hear the end of it. Never. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Ace of India. I can't repeat it, but the mainstream media is responsible. you hear about the bakery is suing Whoopi? Whoopi said she went to pick up something and they didn't serve her because they said, well, I'm sorry, we have a problem with the oven. And she said, oh, it's just because I'm black. The bakery is suing her for defamation. Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. I'll tell you what, instead of me just sitting here watching the comment stream and waiting to figure out what the heck's going on, we got through the questions, so I think it's time for us to say goodnight, and then I will... Whoopi said it was... That's right, not because it was black, because of her political views. Right, exactly. I'm sure that's it. No, Whoopi just didn't get what she wanted when she wanted it, so she's, what else could it be? What else could it possibly be? The boiler was down. The world's going crazy, although it's not going as crazy as I thought it would be. I'd be honest with you. I thought that I got to stop saying I'll be honest with you. That's what people who are lying say. I don't say it a lot, but I guess I say it when it's something that surprises me. To be honest with you. Yeah, she just didn't get what she wanted. Oh, well, I remember what I was going to say. I thought that there was a serious chance that there would be rioting and streets on fire. But no, it's actually been pretty calm. The only people freaking out are the ones who have got their act together enough to set the camera up, get the lighting right, the hair and the makeup right, rehearse the tantrum a few times, and then turn the camera on, and then go ahead and record it to TikTok, then edit it, put in some subtitles, and then post it, and then talk about how they're out of control. It's all just kabuki. Okay. Yeah, I think they're waiting for the inauguration too. All right, I'm going to just wrap this up here because it's all I'm doing is watching the comment section. That's not really that interesting. So as you probably know by now, this show is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com who keep everything going here and who we are just eternally grateful to. And we're going to get things a little more buffed up and get the website tightened up a little bit, and then we'll see if we can talk you into becoming a member yourself. If you're not one already, if you are one already, thank you for everything, and we're going to be working hard to earn your dollars and keep that content coming and keep doing 150% of what we did last month. Somebody who knows their math and compound interest knows that if I can improve the viewership by 150% every month, it won't be long until I'm Joe Rogan. So we'll see. Okay, thanks very much for being with us. We'll say goodnight to our friends over here on Twitch. Good night, Twitch. We'll see you Monday night for the Stratosphere Studio. And until then, take care and have fun. And I never thought I'd say this, but go Mike Tyson. And thank you very much over on YouTube. It's great seeing you guys, and we'll see you guys on Monday as well. So take care and enjoy the 2 frames per second